I've decided to keep a journal.
Hey everybody, welcome to Paul Casty for Me, the podcast about film, culture, politics, and Paul Schrader, where we watch every film written and or directed by American filmmaker Paul Schrader and explore how they speak to their moment in this one. Show us by two guys. I'm one of the guys. My name is Jake Serwin.
I'm one of the guys. My name is Ian Ryan. I think
he was looking around his room. He was
gotta tell you, man,
a reverie.
I've rarely been on such unstable grounds mentally as a result of a film. I'm hoping that our guest is one of two things: either some type of guru Gus Van Sant style counselor who will get me back on the path to mental health, or
maybe a Michael Fassbender style counselor who will simply get us what is that thing called?
Like blood. The thing that would be fine for me also. Yeah.
The thing that cuts your head off.
I don't know which way is up. This is maybe the first time in my life where I feel like I may have been tricked into making fetish content for somebody. And I can't really say why or for whom, but
Ian is in the film Tickled right now, the documentary film Tickled.
That's right. How are you doing?
I'm feeling sniffly today.
Okay.
Which is I've been off the sniffle for quite a while because of I had that surgery.
Yeah.
And now maybe thanks to the overwhelming nose drug quality of the film, I think I might be just kind of suffering.
Re-deviated your septum. Yeah.
Yes, mucus membraneously.
Okay.
It's going to be fine. It's going to be a good episode. Really quick, if you'd like to support the show, you can subscribe to our Patreon, $5 a month. You get a bonus episode every other week. We talk about Clint Eastwood stuff. We talk about Paul Schrader stuff.
Yep.
We're going to be doing, we're going to be talking about porno on there. That's a joke. We're not going to talk about porno on there. Especially not this, guys.
No. And maybe I'm never going to have a sexual feeling again. That's one of the thoughts that I had after this film.
Interesting. I found the film so far from my experience of human sexuality that it's actually basically had no effect on it, but
sure.
we'll get there.
Yep.
But head on over to patreon.com/podcasty for me. We'd love to have you. We will welcome you into our warm embrace.
Yes.
And you can have little gauged earrings while you listen if you want.
Yeah.
Let's bring our guest in. Our guest today is a writer whose work has appeared in Slant Magazine, In Review Online, many other places, and we've been talking about having him on the show since J. Edgar. That was the initial discussion. So a very similar film today. Very glad to have him on the show. Welcome, Charles Lyons-Burt. How you doing, Charles?
Hey, Charles.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. Big fan of the show. I like the whole project. So happy to be here.
Now, other guests, please take note. I don't think we've ever had someone tell us that they like the project.
Yeah.
I'm feeling great right now. I want people to tell us, you got to come in complimentary.
See,
some of these losers.
Gotta disagree right up top here.
Okay.
Because now I feel it's one of those things, somebody says something, you realize everybody else could have been saying it, and maybe they were opting not to. And you have to wonder, now this is interesting. I thought that was off the table, but Charles has just suggested it's very much on the table. So what's wrong with the rest of these people?
Hey, I heard a call for counseling. I just came trying to be therapeutic.
Yes,
trying to be therapeutic here.
Yeah.
It's going to be a 50-minute episode, everybody, and you're all so welcome. Honestly, I mean, I haven't really been thinking about it, but there's a fair amount in common between this film and J. Edgar in all sorts of ways. I feel aesthetically, there's a certain
coolness,
repulsion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly some sterility there. Yeah.
Yes.
Sterility,
exactly.
Under-examined
political ramifications.
Homoeroticism, political ramifications.
Under-examined. Hey, let's not take shots at either of these fantastic films.
I was going to say, I don't know that this film is unaware of the homosexual ramifications of it exactly.
I think it just needs more. It either needs more or less, I think. It's in an uneasy middle ground.
Okay.
But we can't talk about the
nope, we don't do that
movie yet. Gotta do our dumb fucking
That's right.
Shit. It's time for the two questions. This is our signature Oh, wait, no, it's not even time for that yet. First of all, It's time for Paul the News That's Fit to Clint, which is where we catch up with the latest news in Paul Schrader and Clint Eastwood. First of all, huge news.
Something we've been waiting for fully 5-6 months at least.
Ian and I made our euthanasia appointment. No, it's we have a release date for Juror number 2. I think at least in the UK and Ireland.
And it wasn't a total dump, which I think all of us were worried about. I had been hearing murmurings of like an April, which was such a
at
awful
least UK and Ireland
possibility.
We're looking at November 1. The 1st of November.
Yep. Early November.
And that's cool. Kind of a vote of confidence. November is a time when you put out a film you're serious about. That's no August. That's no February.
I think so too. Even if they were just folding to Eastwood mythos pressure, I'm happy that he's getting
it's one of my favorite kinds of pressure.
Treatment. I like that for
This stars Toni Collette, right?
Toni Collette and Nicholas Hoult, the Beast himself, the warm body himself. Why would we both be about to say the Beast himself? Those 3 words.
What the fuck is wrong with this?
I mean, we talk about X-Men kind of a lot, so it makes sense.
What a stupid. That's true.
Okay, X-Men. I was like, that completely went over my head.
Oh,
and
yeah,
the Beast. He was in the Bertrand Bonello film. Like, I don't remember him in that. That was George McKay.
Yes. Yeah.
That would have been cool. Real credit you're giving to us here, Charles. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's the guy from the Matthew Vaughn and then just Bryan Singer X-Men reboots, which are I mean, they barely exist.
Yeah. I saw Days of Future Past. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
In the theater, I think.
Me too.
Yeah. That was good.
I might have seen it twice in a theater because I think my dad wanted to go or something. Or maybe it was First Class that I saw twice in a theater because my dad wanted to go. Anyway, that was me being a good son. Had nothing to do with...
That's important. That's part of film consumption sometimes.
So that's the Clint section. And then the Paul Schrader section, he was recently in Sarajevo for the Sarajevo Film Festival. We talked about this a little bit, but what I want to read here is a post from facebook.com/paul.schrader.900. This is 14 hours ago. He has posted an image of it's a book cover, and it says, Homo Reloaded, The Hidden History of the Last 75,000 Years. And it's got like an obviously Photoshop or maybe even like Apple photo booth affected image of one of the, I don't know how to pronounce the word respectfully, but the Easter Island heads, ancient Polynesian large sculpture, a megalith.
Yeah.
And with the root of it exposed and red to suggest some kind of secret is going on. And then it's got...
I believe that is one of the secrets that some people believe in, is that there were like big old giant... We used to be big giants.
Oh, they think those are like life size?
Yeah. I don't know if it's those specifically, but they look at that and like the like Olmec statues, just the world's big head statues, and their conclusion is that must have been us before. I truly think this is basically their thesis. That is
so...
The pussification of modernity got to us.
Stupid. Charles, you're in the nation's capital. Is that correct? You're in the Washington, D.C. area?
I am, right outside of it. Alexandria, Virginia.
Oh, that's... I'm something of a Springfield, Virginia former resident myself. Did you know this about me? Yeah.
No, I didn't actually.
Talk about a road that you would both know. What's one road that you have in common?
You ever heard of Backlick Road? One of my favorite freeway signs over there in Virginia.
Regret asking this question.
Not as intimately as I wish I was. That is a great road name. Route 7. I'm sure you're well aware of.
Yeah,
Route 7.
That's one of that's the one that's sort of it's between Route 6 and Route 8. Is that right?
Thereabouts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only real heads would know that. Real Nova heads.
Speaking of real heads, I was going to ask you. There's a lot of large scale statues over there in DC. You ever wonder if Abe Lincoln was really that big?
Yeah, that's the first thing I think of, is that people have really not only diminished in their integrity over the years, but in their physical size as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was a death mask for him. That whole thing. It was just
he's in
literal
it.
Marble
His body's in there.
shroud.
Yeah. He was about 1 millimeter smaller in every direction.
Exactly.
He's just encased, and it's white chocolate.
Yep.
A lot of people don't know that. Anyway, Schrader says Homo Reloaded is a book which exists. A book which exists on the cusp of lost history and conspiracy theories.
Well, I gotta say, I admire so much of our friend Paul's writing. I was reading his AMA for this film that we're going to talk about, but we're not talking about yet.
Yes.
And he just said the same type of weird misspelling, dropping words that I do to you all the time and feel insanely stupid about. So it was very affirming to read this, where he was like, that's what the about is for this movie. I'm like, fuck. And I think I said the same thing last week, man.
I mean, I think it's to focus on the words, the correctness of the individual words, rather than the meaning that coalesces around and above and between them. Is that's what makes me the fool and you the wise fool of the podcast. Charles, you're a professional writer. You ever see the word crusp? Familiar with this?
Yeah, I once or twice actually. I think it has a meaning. Wow. Yeah.
We're just not there yet, I guess.
Anyway,
we gotta keep reading.
Homo Reloaded is a book which exists on the cusp of lost history and conspiracy theories. I read it 6 weeks back, but still think about it. I haven't found a scholarly evaluation of it. Is that because it's outside serious historical discussion, or because it baffles even scholars?
This is when I interact with our Mosquito Coast style friends, the permaculture people that I spend time with sometimes, these are the types of questions they are asking. Has nobody refuted this because nobody's brave enough to refute this?
Are the scholars simply ill-equipped to contend with?
Right.
And someone who he's verified on Facebook. I don't think I knew you could get that. Has said, from the author of An Alien Named Jesus Christ, ... as a sort of own, to which Schrader has responded, this book touches very lightly on alien theories, but instead concentrates on the implausibilities of these very real sites. Which, I guess something that's confusing to me, and I think this is related to an alienation. Hey, sorry, that was an accident. Okay. This is related to an alienation that I feel reading some of the reappraisals of the film we're talking about today. Is it not wondrous and mysterious and affirmative of the miracle of the cosmos to just try to figure out how these people a long time ago got the big rock here? Yeah, that's crazy.
That's exciting in itself. Yep.
But
why do we have to do them the disservice of creating a totally alternative narrative?
Where is your wonderment at the innovative sledges that they put together? And it said you have to make it about outer space man,
Yep.
I don't know. Charles, do you have any, what do you call that, classified access? You see any of the spaceman stuff that they have, or no?
My full-time writing gig is covering the government contracting industry. So, I'm every day just knee-deep in classified projects and Area 51. No, not really.
You're walking past all the Indiana Jones crates, and they say, don't look at the crates.
Yeah.
We got to talk to you about something else. We got to talk to you about apportionments or whatever.
OSHA standards not being upheld in third-party subcontractors.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. FAR regulations just being way too labyrinthine.
Yeah.
Number one episode of the podcast by a huge margin, just from this mention.
Oh, I mean, honestly, I would be happy to switch gears right now and hear more about this.
I heard a tiny thump of something in Ian's pants hitting the underside of his desk when you mentioned regulations.
Yeah. That's right.
Tiny thump. Let's get into our signature segment, the two questions. This is where we ask each other two questions to get to know one another and our guest. Charles, were you able to come up with a question for us this morning?
I was. I had a little preamble. So I had a few options.
Classic DC
one of them
thing to do. Actually, I don't know if they wrote that there. Sorry, Charles, please.
No, the DC thing to do would have been to immediately ask you guys what you do for a living. That's sort of the cliche DC things
true.
that when we meet each other at bars, that's all we say. But no, I was gonna potentially maybe do what I think would be deeply unfunny bit where I sang you the lyrics to "Under the Bridge" by Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, wow!
So I think I'm just gonna name that, but not do it.
I like that, like Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
A lot like that.
I could ask you guys if you've ever worn a gray shawl collar sweater like the one that James Deen rocks in this movie. That's quite 2013.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No,
well, we'll answer this as one of our forbidden third questions. I was wearing a shawl collar sweater in 2013, which also sickens me. But it was navy blue.
I have a brown one, but it fits differently than the James Deen one, which I think the 2013ness of his shawl collar is the tightness. I think if it's boxier, then you're in sort of a classic Alan Alda territory that will.
Agreed. Yeah. Dark academia coded. I think brown in general is just more sort of earthy. It's more like crunchy granola. The gray is just very like, I don't know. Yeah.
Brown is so very crusp.
It is. It's quite crusp.
But that's not your question.
Not
of course.
That isn't. I will say also what's 2013 about how he wears it is the deep V-neck T-shirt underneath. But so many V's in this.
It's literally like Mr. Dean's wardrobe provided by American Apparel, I believe.
I saw that.
I think that's in the
No, my actual question is, what's your favorite critical reclamation project?
Ooh.
So a reviled film that's your own personal cause celeb.
Well, I mean, I got an easy answer, and it was a film I was thinking about a lot during the watching of this film.
I'm going to say it first. 1517
to Paris. Fuck,
yeah. You idiot.
I'm a big stupid.
Too much preamble.
Yeah, I mean, I think... and honestly, I saw a lot of our friends, our past guests of the show, John Semley, past guest of the show, Will Sloan, Nick Newman, some of the great 1517 heads in our orbit, also appreciators of, or at least discussers of this film. And I think for some of what I would consider the best reasons to re-examine this film. But I mean, I'm a big fan of 1517, and I'm also... it's hard to reclaim a film that simply didn't really get looked at much, but I have been carrying the banner for Alita Battle Angel for many years now, and I think...
He's an old partisan.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
I think Alita will... This is a film that means a lot, and it has a lot to say about our relationships to our bodies, and of course to the super rich floating city of Zalem. So... people are going to come around to Alita Battle Angel, and when they do, I will be waiting with open arms, and I will hold no grudges.
I've been meaning to check that one out. Is that a Robert Rodriguez movie?
It's a Robert Rodriguez, but it was developed by James Cameron for quite a long time, so it seems a lot more like a real movie. But Rodriguez is, I think he's another guy like Schrader and like Soderbergh who have been sort of exploring new ways to get a movie made around the same time. So he's an interesting fella. Alita Battle Angel, check it out in theaters now. It's not
great
You're
choice.
bringing it back. You're trotting it back out into theatrical release.
Dragging my Blu-ray and yelling at the guy at the AMC.
Get scared.
It's a 4K. There's enough stuff and there's enough image in there for the big screen.
I'm scared already. Yeah, I think obviously I agree with 1517. Jake already covered it beautifully, so I don't think I have to restate that. I would say beyond that, sort of classic reclamation projects. Ishtar is the type of film where I watched it and was just sort of confused by the negative reaction that it received originally.
Cosign on Ishtar.
So that's kind of a lazy, easy choice, but the type of thing where I was just surprised that it didn't get more appreciation the first time, and it seems more natural to me. So it's not like there was a ton of work that had to be done. I think some cool reclamation projects require a little bit of hand holding or a little bit of like readerly work from the audience to get it across the line. But I think some of these films, they just work on their own.
Well, as we learned from Ishtar, telling the truth can be dangerous business. Honest and popular don't go hand in hand. I don't remember any more words.
Great point. Yeah, that's all right. That was pretty good.
I still have not seen Ishtar. I'm making my way through the May catalog, but yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, yeah.
Couple months behind, feller.
Okay, get the fuck out of here. All right. No, it's okay. I'm just mad today.
Yeah,
this is a mad episode. Yeah, Charles, what about
what's
you?
What's your favorite film reclamation project?
What are you reappraising?
Let's see. I think I wrote a few down. Obviously, I feel like I was in the initial wave of people who helped rehabilitate Black Hat. I think that, like that's a obvious choice, but I love that movie and saw it in theaters and was immediately struck by it. But same with kind of Wam Kalei Sarah, his work. I think for a second, he was sort of dismissed, but movies like Unknown and The Commuter are fantastic.
Yep.
I like a lot of those. The Jungle Cruise.
I started that.
Didn't see it.
I was charmed by it.
A knife to the heart of all the Colasera auteurists, who I consider myself among them. But
yeah. And
then Black Adam, kind of interesting, but
oh god, I forgot he did that. That's rough.
It's got
really
some stuff
rough.
Going on, but
Really?
It's not great. But it does have some stuff going on. It's one of the few Hollywood films to depict the actual misery of life in the Middle East for regular people.
Huh.
There's like imperial checkpoints in that film, but
Wow.
But also then there's just a lot of like The Rock catching a missile with his hand and like smirking,
Sure.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. I would say one I would highlight though that people should give a second look, that I think it's embattled. It's a real embattled movie, but Trey Edward Schultz's Waves.
Oh wow! I don't think I've heard of anyone reappraising. You're on the.
Neither have I. This is interesting.
You're on the crust.
Yeah.
God
Really
damn it!
riding
God
the crust.
damn it! Yeah, crust rider.
Yeah, cool.
I think it's, especially for a person of a certain age. I'm 28, and the music that film selects and its portrait of going to high school in a certain time is uncanny. I don't know. I think it really dredges something up. The opening scene set to Animal Collective's Floridada for a certain type of person, that's going to really stir something deep in you. So I don't know. Even beyond the music, I think it's a worthy film. But yeah, that's...
All right.
I will check it out. I have not seen it. But Ian is recently experiencing some Floridada psychosis, he was telling me.
Oh dear.
We were talking about Florid psychosis the other day. It's fine.
We
it's
were
fine. On the
talking
last
about the film of Adam Resurrected
episode. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Thank you for the question, Charles. Wonderful question. Ian, you're up.
Great. Yeah, I am going to hit us with an easy one. What was your first...
Easy for whom?
Yeah. Speaking of embattled things, this is an embattled question. I'm having a hard time. No, what was your first cell phone? What did you?
Yeah.
I mean, you're a younger man than us, Charles. Not by a lot, though. So take it easy.
Sure. Mine. I didn't have a Razor, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because I think that's such a classic answer. I had this one. I don't know exactly what model it was, but it flipped like a Razor, sort of like a traditional cell phone, flipped normally, but then the screen flipped to the other side, and you could have a kind of
sort of a
wide
mixed,
texting
mixed Razor
landscape
sidekick
there.
kind of a form factor.
Yeah.
Sorry, my girlfriend hates the phrase form factor. I'm not sure why, but it really grates her, and I apologize. But she did have a sidekick. She was.
Oh,
just opened the door.
Nice. I guess that's what it was. Sidekick. Let's see. I guess that's what it was. Yeah.
It was a sidekick?
I don't know. It wasn't this exactly.
Because that was like the Paris Hilton phone. I feel like that was...
The sidekick was like an achievement of physics. It was something that was derived from like NASA tech. Whenever I saw somebody with a sidekick, I was just in
magic.
awe.
Yeah. Indistinguishable from magic.
Yep.
Okay, so Charles, do you remember the make? Was it a Nokia? Was it an Ericsson?
I think it was a Motorola.
Oh, Motorola. Very nice.
Pretty sure. Yeah. It was a great phone. A lot of memories imprinted on that. For some reason, like, I don't know, I'm always associating memories with, the art I was engaging with at that time. So I'm really getting blasts of like Let the Right One In. Like for some reason I was using that phone.
Yep.
I'm messaging like my first girlfriend in middle school, and like I'm watching a pirated copy of Let the Right One In.
You're watching a 140p copy of Let the Right One In on your phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my first phone, I don't remember what, it was just like a bog standard flip phone, like kind of unappealingly beveled edges or whatever. And it was, I think, a Nokia, and then the Razr was my second phone. I had a black Motorola Razr. Very, very cool guy.
Yep.
I used it to text my mom, "We are still playing Rock Band. I will be 20 minutes late."
And that took 18 minutes to compose.
Yeah. Ian, what about you?
Unfortunately, also a black Motorola Razr. I mean, this is the sad reality. But I am actually now going to piggyback off of Charles's observation. And I'm going to say that I, at the time, was mostly watching on a video iPod.
Oh, yeah.
A little brief shining moment of the video iPod. I was watching, I think I had about 3 films on there. The only 2 I remember, Shooter and A Serious Man. Classic. Double feature.
That's so fucking funny. That's so Ian. I think I remember you telling me once, and maybe this was in confidence. I shouldn't share it on the podcast, but you made some homemade pornography that was it can only be shown on an iPod Nano. Is that right? Your entire body could only fit on the
insult,
Nano.
But in fact, what this absolute buffoon has said is that I must be a very big person, because the only thing that could be shown on a very small screen is a big thing, not a small thing. You clown.
Somebody tell this guy about Zooms. Please. First of all, sometimes we use them for the show, so I would hope you'd learn about them. The Canyons.
That's true.
Directed by Paul Schrader. Ian and I have been rendered stupefied by this film. This is a film directed by Paul Schrader, released August the 2nd, 2013. Exciting moment, because we've now entered the period of Schrader's filmography where Ian and I know each other when these films are coming out. Right. This is post our encounter.
This is also the first film I remember being aware of Paul Schrader making new movies.
Me too.
He was in the news. He was in the film news, and I was reading the film news.
It's been 5 years since Adam Resurrected, and Adam Resurrected was not getting the kind of attention that this film was getting for all sorts of reasons. Charles, what is your relationship to this film and to Paul Schrader more generally?
I knew it by reputation, but I hadn't actually seen it prior to this week. But a number of people who I trust really liked it at the time, and
what's your relationship with those people like now? Would you say?
After watching it this week, I've severed all ties. No,
smart. I'd
rather be alone than have those friends.
It struck me as something meta for some reason, because I sort of assumed that it would be doing something interesting with Lohan's kind of iconography, and with Deen's also sort of the knowledge of Deen being a porn star.
Wait, he's what?
We'll hold your hand through this, Jake. But he
just kissing though, right?
Exactly. Softcore only. No, so I didn't have a tremendously expansive relationship with the movie before, but always kind of had this idea that I would like it if I watched it, I guess. And Schrader in general, I have come to kind of late. I've seen a handful of his movies now. I'd seen his Scorsese collaborations, obviously. And Raging Bull is probably my favorite Scorsese movie. But with Schrader in general, I like him. I think the acting style that he directs is, maybe somewhat parallel to someone like M. Night Shyamalan. It's a little affected, but in a way that
an interesting comparison. He's another one of those guys who's like financing movies in unique ways at this point in his career. Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah. I saw Trap last weekend, and I couldn't help but, and I was have been watching some Schrader films in prep for this, and I couldn't help but be struck by the similarities in the acting style.
I felt a lot of empathy for the Josh Hartnett character in that film because of doing the podcast.
Sure.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Very similar scenarios.
Ian is my precocious daughter.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I wish I was having that good of a time.
Yeah, honestly, that girl, she's quite good. The girl who plays his daughter in Trap, one of the best, like that age of teenage girl performances that I've seen. Just feels like a real person.
No, she was great. Shyamalan's daughter was good too as Lady Raven, honestly.
I respect that opinion. It's not one that I necessarily share, but
you know what, Charles? I'm actually on your side. I knew going into it Jake's feelings about what's her name, Lady Godiva,
Salika Night Shyamalan, Lady Raven,
not the real person,
Lady Raven. Yeah,
I don't
thank you.
Look, I have a lot of empathy for her. I'm not angry at her, and I don't think it's her fault, but I think they put a lot on a first-time
Those
actress.
are the types of compliments I'll be giving in this episode as well. So I understand.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about his other daughter's efforts directing a film this year.
Watchers.
That was. I have sympathy for her, but
right. I see you in the Avatar sense.
Right, Avatar.
Avatarian.
All right, so you've been catching up on Schraders.
I have.
Okay. Any standouts for you in your recent watches?
I was a little let down by Light Sleeper. I liked it, but I think I've heard such a
Team Jake.
I haven't actually listened to your guys' episode about that.
Cutting that out.
I'm looking. I've never heard the show before. No, I have. It was good, but I don't know. There'd been a lot of buildup. I'd heard, masterpiece. I feel like from people, and I don't know. It's a little overcooked, but the laden symbolism of the trash was somehow like not as fitting there as it was in Taxi Driver, I guess. Or
I think in Taxi Driver it was also non-diegetic trash. I think it was just there.
Yep.
There might be a shot or two of trash. I'm trying to remember, but in Taxi Driver, but yeah, it's not just these. You're returning to this sort of imagery and setting of the workers.
It's not obviously like shredded newspaper that a PA had to put into a trash bag. It's genuine trash strike trash.
Right.
Yeah.
But I did watch, and I think pertinent to this discussion, The Comfort of Strangers, just a couple of days ago. And having seen that you got, I think I listened to the Affliction episode with you guys and Glenn, who I know I actually go pretty far back with Glenn. Great guy. Shout out Glenn Heath Jr.
Wow, shout out Glenn.
Love Glenn.
He and I when I was embarrassingly young, like 13 years old, started a film review website called Gone Cinema Poaching, well over a decade ago. And the writers didn't know, for the most part, my age, including Glenn.
Holy shit.
And Glenn was my managing editor. And I had writers
very crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah, I had writers like Simon Abrams, who you may know. Great writer. A few other, Matt Noller, who's not really as involved in the film scene anymore. I think he's a lawyer. But it was a cool venture. I don't know. It eventually crumbled in my hands because I was a young teenager who didn't know how to sustainably run a film site. But Glenn was...
You tried to form an LLC. They said, what are you talking about?
Little Lad Company. That's what it was called when he did it.
Yeah, perfect. Exactly. I really... Glenn, I think, gave me a shout out for helping introduce him to the wider film community on his episode of The Cinephiliacs. And I wanted to return the favor and really... thank him for being understanding and appreciative and not mad that I had duped him into writing and giving his time and energy to this venture.
Look, I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but I do notice that you do have sort of a red hair, and you were a little red-haired, a young person tricking adults which reminds me of a certain Lindsay Lohan film.
I see. Yeah.
Also with trap in the title.
How's your British accent?
And then, of course, Glenn married one of your parents.
Yeah, no, okay. Yeah, of course. That's crazy.
This is an incredible story. I can't believe this hasn't gotten like a write-up that becomes very popular on Twitter.
It really
for
should.
40
Yeah,
hours.
I've kind of buried it over the years.
Get ye to medium.com.
Yeah, this does confirm my fears that I may be, just being in this episode, I may be a part of somebody's scheme. This is exactly what I was afraid of from the beginning. And now I'm getting the sense that this guy has had a couple schemes.
We're in a number of
life.
schemes. Let's talk about the schemes. So the main...
Okay.
This is one of those movies where the story around the movie, of course, eclipses and swallows the movie. Yeah.
This is so silly. I think we started to talk about this off pod, Jake, but the blow up that this gets relative to it feels like people writing about this don't know about the history of Hollywood. They don't know anything about how movies have ever been made
Schrader
historically.
Says
very
something
strange.
Very similar about specifically the author of the New York Times piece.
Stephen Roderick.
Yeah.
Oh.
Stephen R. They called him in elementary school. There was another Stephen. I don't know.
Right.
We had a Stephen R. in my class. Look,
cool.
I'm but a man. Did you know Stephen R. from the DC area?
Yeah, no, probably like my fourth best friend. Like he's not number one, but
wow, damn. Countered your third grade thing with a much more powerful third grade thing of fourth best friend. You're dead.
So Schrader is having trouble getting a movie put together. There's a brief mention in the New York Times piece about a film that almost happened with combined Hollywood-Bollywood funding starring Leonardo DiCaprio that Schrader almost makes, which is fascinating.
Well, there's that, and then there's also Bait.
There's also Bait, which is a film written by Bret Easton Ellis and produced by Braxton Pope, who are the other two sort of points of the triangle that gets this film put together. That is apparently some kind of a shark thriller, which I'm not mad at, except for
Spanish funding that also got pulled, as far as I understand.
Yeah. What is funding in Spanish?
I don't know how you say that in Spanish. Delete this.
Okay, deleting this. The whole thing, the podcast, all the episodes.
Let's start over.
Yeah.
And so at some point, someone hatches on the idea of Kickstarter, of crowdfunding specifically, which is very nascent when this happens. This is one of the first crowdfunded films.
As Braxton Pope points out, this is pre-Zach Braff, pre-Veronica Mars.
Exactly. Pre-Mayberry Man, for all of the YKS listeners joining us.
Mm-hmm.
So they decide, well, we can't get funding in the traditional way. Let's, Schrader is always cost-minded. He's savvy about how to conceptualize a film that can be made cheaply. And so he wants a film that is like beautiful people in beautiful rooms and everything else. The CGI shark can be elided from the picture and you can save some money that way. And they decide also it's going to be the most open production of all time or whatever. So there's several new technologies being leveraged here. I would argue even Kickstarter is not really around anymore.
That's probably fair to say, yeah.
It's barely extant. So you have the crowdfunding from Kickstarter, and Schrader is like auctioning off a money clip that De Niro gave him on the set of Taxi Driver, which is really depressing. There's Bret Easton Ellis will read your fucking novel and give you notes on it. And Braxton Pope will
which I strongly recommend against.
Yeah.
As somebody who has worked as a professional editor, I cannot encourage you enough not to have him review your novel for any reason.
It could be a nice way to punish him.
It's a good point. Yeah.
And then, Braxton Pope will work out with you with his trainer or something like that, and then there's a guy who he wants this to happen so much that not only does he give them $10,000, but he also lets them shoot in his house. And that's the house where James Deen's character Christian lives. And they also say they announce that they're going to cast via something called Let It Cast. Is that what it's called? Let Cast It?
That's what it's called. It's very strange. And I think this has become more relevant because in the course of the pandemic, this became like a real hot issue around the actors striking, specifically because they were all being made to tape their like, whatever, casting videos, and they would get no response. And it meant that they could have way wider casting calls. So they were basically creating way more free labor that would never see any result. In theory, maybe better for art. And Schrader makes a similar argument to the argument that producers and directors were making at that time, which is, this is going to give access to people who don't have agents or whose agents would get in the way. And it creates more opportunities for people who are outside the Hollywood sphere. But it also just means that this is the equivalent of like making somebody do a little project for your job application that you will maybe throw in the trash and never look at.
Yeah, it's like we have a mutual friend who works in marketing and is regularly doing like hours and hours of free work as part of job application processes, and they look at it and say, "Thank you so much. We're going in a different direction." But who knows if they take some of those ideas?
Right. So
they're going to cast via that. Schrader, this is, I believe, where Schrader gets hooked on Facebook, is through the making of this film.
Sure makes sense. Also, a real bridge to make with Bret Easton Ellis, a social media freak, almost from the beginning.
Yeah, we'll get to Bret Easton Ellis, but here's a quick sort of a teaser for what we're going to say later. He's a fucking idiot. Anyway, all of this, though, this is kind of the Braxton Pope, Bret Easton Ellis idea. And meanwhile, Paul Schrader is still Paul Schrader, and he still is the guy who has made real movies.
Yeah.
I mean, Ellis at this point has not really written a real movie. He's like, his novels have had diminishing financial success and critical attention.
And famously hated or strongly disliked Mary Harron's adaptation of American Psycho, which I would argue the film adaptation takes the bones of the book and applies it in all the ways that are infinitely more interesting than the way Ellis presents it on his own. So,
like Stephen King, another absolute bonehead, he has a problem with the best adaptation of his work.
Right.
Charles, I hope we're not scandalizing you. Are you a Bret Easton Ellis guy?
No. As much as I am getting the sense that I might be the strongest defender of this movie, no, I can't say that I am a Bret Easton Ellis fan.
Here's the thing, though, Charles. We want that. We want somebody to be advocating for the film. I'm not saying that just to make
I don't
you
need
feel better.
you're comforting. Yeah, no, I'm
oh my God.
You're the one that needed the counselor, not me. And,
Needed? No, buddy. You're still in that role, all right?
Complicated, like, who's the cuckold dynamic, both in the film and also on the show. We're all wearing the horns today.
I will also say I'm just looking forward to, as I was looking forward and reading reviews from some of our friends, like our friend Yui, who I believe enjoys this film a lot.
Of the film, Yui.
And a few other people whose work I admire. There was a White Little Lies, Little White Lies. What am I saying here? Little White Lies review that.
You're thinking of Big Little Lies and maybe White Lotus. The man is absolutely HBO pilled. His Sunday nights are accounted for.
That's right, and I'm having a good time. No, the Little White Lies piece that I enjoyed, but I gotta say, Charles, I just up front, I have to establish this because I was only kind of joking at the beginning. I was having like a bit of a crisis texting Jake earlier today because I was losing track of.
Too. It was like 7 a.m. that Ian was like, "I'm so mad. I've turned red and steam's coming out."
Well, not just mad, but confused because it reminded me of something that we all sort of experience. I think usually at about age 10, but I just left it behind since then. Which is that. You, of course, come to the realization that your experience of life is not the experience of life that others are having. Right. You discover your own subjectivity.
How do I know that the canyons I see is the same as the canyons you see?
That, no joke, is exactly how I would characterize this. So part of my question for you, Charles, first question, we're not even getting into the film proper yet. I just kind of want to like see if we're on, if we have like shared language to talk about this film with is, what did you feel about the acting and dialogue of this movie? Because I will say, apart from this, I do think that there are interesting things to discuss here. This is a rich film in many other senses, but just tell, what is your feeling about the film in sort of the most superficial way that people engage with films traditionally?
Yeah, sure. No, it's an important thing to talk about, I think, with it. I was thinking about this, especially with the male performances, because I think set aside Lohan, who I think is very good in the movie. I think you feel with Lohan, you feel her Yeah, you
She's
feel
the best
her
in the movie. You and I agree
desperation.
on
You
this.
feel sort of sea of conflicted emotions. She's bringing what's clearly maybe sort of a real life, I don't know, rawness and sort of lost in the sauce type of energy to it, but that she's able to bring across to the screen pretty naturalistically, I think. With the men, I think broadly speaking, Deen is good camp, and who plays Ryan? I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
Nolan Funk.
Yeah, I think Nolan Funk.
Nolan Funk gonna give it to you. I think he's changed his name. Saturday night, he's in this spot.
Is really flailing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whiny, like, grating performance that, yeah, he doesn't work at all.
Okay. All right. At least I feel like we can
Yeah.
reach a common understanding. This has been a relief for me. And that's not to say that we have to agree. I just felt concerned that you realize at a certain point, if you're not even seeing the same thing, then a conversation maybe is not even productive beyond just sort of like curiosity about what is happening in another's mind, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think his performance though even works though in a sense because the movie is depicting this world of absolutely vapid and empty-headed sort of people who are filling their time and energy and are motivated by a lot of things that we are not placing nearly as much value on as they are. And so I think in the film's depiction of this world, yeah, he's a bad striving actor. It's almost like, I'm coming up with this, on the fly, but it's almost like Natalie Portman's performance in May December a little bit, where she's purposefully playing a bad actor. I can't assign intentionality, and I don't really care to that much with Nolan Funk, but yeah, I mean, he's not a successful actor, the character, he's a bad actor. And
the biggest question for me around the film is like, how many of the people involved in the film how many of the people not on screen involved in the film know that they are exactly the same kind of guy as the characters on screen? Like, does Bret Easton Ellis, I mean...
That one is the only one I can answer with really great confidence.
No,
that,
he does not know that he is.
His entire career has been made of, I critique vapid people. Isn't that interesting? And yet, among the most vapid writers that has ever achieved commercial success, in my mind. So,
well, let's just say this here. To any of our listeners who are fans of Bret Easton Ellis, I'm sorry. If this offends you, I hope that you have found your own personal pleasure from...
I've known people in life
reading his books,
and I think I'm actually aware of at least one of our past guests who's a friend, who's a friend in the Society of Friends sense of Bret Easton Ellis.
The man is a dolt. The man is a clod, and he insists he's a provocateur until someone listens to him. Like he starts yelling, "I'm a provocateur! I'm a provocateur!" I hate to speak ill of a fellow podcaster. First of all, Bret Easton Ellis, prolific podcaster.
Oh God,
but. Yep. He got famous for writing a novel that was impressive for someone to have written it in high school.
And I will say, I think I don't know your life, Charles. I'm going to say I'm the person with probably the most contact with high school writers on a consistent basis as part of my job, teaching high schoolers to write or to read.
Yeah.
And I would say that, of course, this would be a little bit impressive from a high schooler. I've seen high schoolers who write better than this, who have written more interesting things. I was going to say, but less than zero is engaging.
But he's not in high school anymore, and the writing is the same.
Yep, absolutely.
And he's conceived of and will not shut up about in this time, and probably still, but certainly around the time of the creation, the production of this film, he's come up with this framework of a cultural shift from what he calls empire to post-empire that is so meaningless and vibes-based that it can only come from someone who's dumb enough to think that he's smarter than Karl Marx because he's alive and Karl Marx isn't.
That's
there's
exactly
no
right.
economic analysis or material analysis of any kind going on in how he sees the world, and that's borne out from the film clearly. But
and speaking of traps, getting into a conversation with people who love Ellis is a real exercise in frustration, because if you point out his superficiality, they will counter by saying that's the point. And I'm also aware of that. This is not a surprise to me. Somebody being superficial or critiquing superficiality without any depth or insights is not interesting to me. Somebody treating superficiality with superficiality, I'm not sure offers a lot to me in terms of things to dig into, things that are worth my time.
And you know what? Go ahead and send this to him, and maybe he'll get mad at us. And maybe we'll get more listeners.
Truly, not many people on the earth whose opinion I value less.
But if that's happened and you're listening to this because of that, patreon.com/podcasty for me. My credit score is like 25. I need this.
Yeah.
Ian, before when you said that's the point, that reminded me, we used to live together, Charles. Ian and I used to, and I would sometimes hear a woman's voice through the wall saying, "That's the point." I know Ian had pulled down his pants.
Yep. Yeah.
Sharp like a tack.
Mm-hmm. So this all built off Let It Cast. This is a strange production process, which in itself, I think it can make for art worth investigating at the very least.
Sure. But I think like so many projects that are like, we're doing this in a new way, we're going to do this in a different way. Invariably, at some point, they realize maybe the old ways aren't totally wrong. And so they decide to cast two people who have some notoriety outside of the film. Bret Easton Ellis is obsessed, like many a 14-year-old in body or mind, with James Deen around this time, the pornographic actor James Deen. His real name is Brian.
Yeah.
Which I feel like takes a lot of the
power away from him.
Yeah, exactly. The aura away from him.
Good. Yeah, he claims to have basically written the role with him in mind.
I believe that he was thinking about him a lot. And then someone suggests Lindsay Lohan initially for the Cynthia role, for the role of the yoga teacher, which is very strange.
Oh, I think that could have also been interesting.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's strange to be like, we're going to cast this from just some schmuck who sends in a self-tape from their MacBook. But Lindsay Lohan is going to play the second or third most prominent female character. Like at that point, just put Lindsay Lohan in the lead. And so she shows up to the first meeting and says, I don't want to play Cynthia, I want to play Tara. And that's how it happens. But like so many films of this type, there is at a certain point just a realization that maybe some of the stuff works because it has been working. Not to be a Rit Vern guy.
No.
Like Jackson
I understand
Maine,
what you're saying.
I do agree that maybe it's time to let the old ways die. I think about that all the time.
Do we know how she... you might be getting to this, but do we know how she got on board as a producer? Or because it's her first producer credit, I believe.
I mean, everyone is paid $100 a day. The film's budgeted about $250,000, of which I think half, maybe a little more than half, came from Kickstarter, and the rest came from the principals, Braxton and Ellis and Schrader. I think maybe each put in $30,000, something like that. So I would imagine that Lohan's producer credit might be part of her contract that said she would get profit participation after only being paid $100 a day.
Gotcha.
That seems entirely possible. There was also, in reading about the production, like days or weeks where people weren't getting paid at all, and they were potentially trying to win them over by auctioning off Samsung tablets and all sorts of
I thought they were just going to try to auction
so.
off the tablets to get more money to pay the crew with cold hard cash, not just give them tablets.
No, no, I think it was the version of the story I read was that they were going to do like a little more like a raffle than an auction, just to give people some of the tablets. And then I think apocryphally the story says that Schrader wanted one of the tablets.
Yeah,
so
I wish someone would give me some tablets. You know what I mean?
some final tablets. Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, the film is cast. They're making the film. There's that New York Times story that comes out before the film.
Yes.
That is, it's called "Here's What Happens When You Cast Lindsay Lohan in Your Movie," and it's, I mean, so much of this is about how we, as a society, treated Lindsay Lohan, who was the child of a Long Island failed stockbroker and active addict, and her mother, who seems like she's also kind of like a momager and has her own struggles. Dina Lohan,
the great granddaughter of the co-founder of the pro-life party on Long Island, apparently.
I don't think I knew that.
I saw that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And she, she's successful in The Parent Trap. She's a very precocious and talented child actress who then has the, I would say, deep misfortune to grow up and become like voluptuous. I think this is basically and impossible to recover from, to be a child actress who then is very becomes very womanly outwardly. This is like the internet, especially at this time, the internet will absolutely destroy you. I mean, the Olsen twins, I think, counteracted the countdown to 18th birthday, the countdown clocks to their 18th birthday by smoking themselves to about 65 pounds, which is not recommended. But
you're right. I mean, but again, this is not even unique to this time, to be clear. I mean, certainly even shortly before this, your Drew Barrymores growing up in this atmosphere.
To this time relative to now. I feel like people now know someone is sort of shaming magazine editors a little bit into like,
it's gotten marginally
not talking
better. You
about
still,
Millie
still
Bobby
have
Brown's bikini body or whatever the fuck.
But we both can think of that person because she is somebody who is just a few steps in the right direction away from that.
Yeah. However, she is not nearly as compelling on screen as Lindsay Lohan by about orders of magnitude. So she's in Mean Girls. She's very funny in Mean Girls, and then she is
Freaky Friday better than Mean Girls, though. I just wanted to put that out there.
I haven't seen Freaky Friday.
Same director.
I've never seen it either. Can't agree or disagree.
It helps me. It helps my soul to know as we record this that Freakier Friday or whatever is in the can, is coming out. It helps me to know that Lindsay Lohan has sort of a redemption arc on the horizon.
That's a sequel I can get behind.
Nice.
I didn't watch Irish Wish for this, but
I did not either.
Yeah.
No, nor the werewolf film that she did a few years ago. It kind of it's called Among the Shadows.
This.
Yeah,
Okay.
It looks sort of morbidly enticing to me. I don't know, but
this is still the period where like this is the height of TMZ or immediately post height of TMZ. This is what's that? Is that TMZ's music? Oh shit. It's time for a quick check-in with TMZ Dead. This is a segment we did once on the show.
Yeah.
Instead of TMZ Live, that's the joke. Oh, I've got a headline here. Jessica Biel's son with Justin Timberlake, Silas, 9, is so big in extremely rare public sighting. I don't even have a joke for that. The headline is a little boy is big.
Yeah, what is this publication? This is why you can't believe people who say like things have gotten so much worse. This has been around.
It's been around.
This has been happening.
TMZ is like, they're chasing Lindsay Lohan around to take photographs of her engaging in some of the self-destructive behaviors that she's probably engaging with to soothe the stress of being chased around by paparazzi all the time. I mean, it's like
this is the weirdness you get where I believe it's in the Braxton Pope article where he talks about the callousness of TMZ, the fact that they reached out to him after James Gandolfini died just to try to get like a tidbit,
before his death had been announced. He got a weird call from TMZ asking him about James Gandolfini. He's like, why are you asking? And then the public announcement came out.
But the trouble is, and I guess it doesn't make it not interesting, and this is the more compelling arguments for Bret Easton Ellis as an author, I think, are sort of reading at him in some ways. And this is maybe how you could treat this type of material, because Braxton Pope points this out. And then the way he talks about everybody else is the exact same type of nastiness that I only associate with TMZ or this brand of people.
Right.
So it's a very strange degree of self-awareness where you can say like, this is unpleasant, but I'm only like marginally different in the way that I view all the instrumentalized people that I engage with.
And to his credit, I think Schrader comes across as, first of all, he has repeatedly compared Lohan to Marilyn Monroe, which is obviously not a unique comparison that he's making, but specifically on the set of The Misfits, and is talking about the difficulty that she had in balancing her very public life with trying to be an actor. And he talks about how it's uniquely different and difficult for Lohan, but that she has a similar sort of ineffable, compelling quality.
Charisma.
And he seems to understand that there's some coverage of the film said that it was constantly saying like, this must be so difficult for you, Lindsay. So he seems to have a distance from this that Ellis and Pope do not.
Yeah, I agree.
So they cast James Deen, who has been very multiply accused of sexual assault. We don't need to get into that on the show, except to say that, in Walk Hard, where the dad says the wrong kid died like a million times.
Classic bit.
I think the wrong James Deen was killed in a car accident. That's how I feel about that.
Look, I agree that we also don't have to delve into it, but I think it deserves a tiny bit of attention because in the film, he is playing a violent, abusive misogynist with an extremely unhealthy relationship to sex. And as far as I can tell from what the information available to us, this is his situation.
I think it's hard to watch the movie, especially as I did for the first time, already knowing the James Deen stuff, it was hard
to watch him throw Lindsay Lohan to the ground, knowing that he has thrown women around and done things to them that they did not consent to.
Yeah, she also, someone asked her, like, oh my God, Lindsay, are you okay? Or whatever after that, and on the set. And she said, I'm used to it from my dad. I mean, it's everyone involved in this is like damaged. But James Deen has a huge 2013. Like all of the James Deen things that you know about are 2013.
I wonder if people who are alive and young now have ever heard of this man. He was a huge deal. People were talking about. I mean, we were both in college. People would just like in class be talking about James Deen. This was like people of all genders and backgrounds.
I remember. Yeah, a lot of my sort of cool black hair and tattoos and cigarettes female friends in college, they were into two guys, James Deen, James Franco.
Jake Serwin.
No.
Okay.
Nope. Distinctly not. Crucially not that guy.
Gotcha. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, you couldn't avoid this guy because he was like cute or whatever. There's so much. I mean, now I don't know if it's unethical to take these things down, but like there's so many glowing profiles of the man.
Yep.
Still, where they call him like the cute kid from your Spanish class or whatever.
Yeah.
And now he's so nice, it's funny that he can so convincingly perform acts of very rough sex. And isn't that funny considering how nice he is?
Yep.
And then I also found my way to reason.com because apparently he was a big libertarian. So. Shocking.
Wow. Okay.
Shocking that he had a problem. He had a problem with affirmative consent laws and went through that.
Yep.
I did not know. I will reveal that about any of this about his crimes. No.
Oh, really?
Somehow
that was probably a balm for you when you were watching.
Sounds like it would be an unpleasant experience. Even more unpleasant watching it, knowing that.
Yeah, because in 2013 he does this. He's got all these profiles. There's like they talked about him on like ABC News or something. I mean, it got to like that level.
Yeah, no, for real.
Then he does he does this movie, the Farrah Abraham fake sex tape thing where he was he was obviously hired to make a professionally shot and then quote unquote leaked sex tape with a Teen Mom cast member.
Yep.
That happens in 2013. There's the thing where there's like a comedian and think piece writer who does porn with him for like a think piece. That happens in 2013. And then in 2015,
yep.
I don't have the exact number, something like 8 or 9 at least, women come forward as describing variously like
in their personal lives, in their professional lives,
crossing boundaries,
things
on and off set, sexual assault at the hands of this man. So watching, look, I'm going into the movie not liking the guy, to put it plainly. Let's do a quick plot summary, Ian.
Yeah, happy to do it. And I don't want to say in fairness to him, you don't got to give it to ISIS, as we say on this
you
show.
do not have to got to hand it, I believe, to ISIS.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I will say that we're aware of many actor and director nasty guys when we're watching these movies. But I think it's tougher when, like we've said, it's reflected so directly on screen. It's difficult to maybe even create a moment of suspension of disbelief.
There's not a lot of art to separate from the artist either.
No, that's kind of my sort of like artist navigator thing is if it's reflected in the art, that poison, then it's, that's probably something.
Manhattan, for example. Woody Allen's Manhattan being.
Although a ravishing aesthetic object also, so it's tough, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't contest that at all myself. All right. So the film, we've already said, stars Lindsay Lohan as Tara. She is a woman in a relationship with James Deen's Christian. And the film opens at a very interestingly shot couples dinner party, or couples, like night out, whatever, double date between her James Deen, James Dean's assistant Gina, who's played by Amanda Brooks in the film, and then her boyfriend's Ryan, who is played by the aforementioned Nolan Funk, and they're going to be the 4 leads in the film. And as the kids would say, the vibes were terrible at this dinner party. This is like an awful, uncomfortable. They're engaging with each other. It's unclear what their dynamic is, who is mad at whom, who is beholden to whom. But they talk over the course of this short dinner, this extremely LA dinner, or I'd say stereotypically LA, not even realistically LA necessarily. But they talk about the fact that Christian likes to invite people over to have sex with Tara, or to have sex with them, or multiple people when they all have sex together, and he films it. And that seems to be like his real passion. But he is also the producer of this film that Ryan is going to be the lead in. And they discuss the fact that Ryan got the part because his girlfriends fought for him, but also maybe Tara fought for him, and also maybe Christian wanted him a little bit. It's unclear, but something happened where he ended up in the lead in sort of like a small horror, a cheap horror movie or something, where he maybe wouldn't have gotten it otherwise. We break from there, and we get to see their dynamics separately. Now we see that Tara and Christian have this kind of fraught relationship. They drink heavily. There are guys who come over. They invite a guy off of. It's not Adult Friend Finder. It's something.
He
what
says
do they call
adult. Well, he's Amore, which is an app that's made up. But then,
Amore.
did Bret Easton Ellis think Adult Friend Finder was real? Because it was. I don't think Adult Friend Finder. I think it was like an Ashley Madison.
It was a thing that was at.
Like it was all. It was like 90% men.
Ashley Madison was real.
No,
yeah. Oh, sure.
No, I mean
sure,
it wasn't like a real. Like no one actually got a date through or got. I don't think.
Although in fairness, Christian is finding men in several cases here.
The guy who comes over is played by another pornographic actor.
Yeah,
correct. Yes.
I don't want to. The man obviously he's attractive enough to get work in this way. He did really look to me like when they use a computer to reconstruct what a skull looked like. The face on
like of a famous pharaoh.
Yeah, or of like an Iceman or something, a bog body. He doesn't look like a bog body. He looks like what they think a bog body looked like before it fell in the bog.
Okay.
Sorry to the guy.
Incredibly specific. Sorry, Charles. Did you want to?
No, yeah, I was just going to say that
here?
Christian asserts that he's basically trying to say that it's mainly women that they invite over, but what we're mainly seeing is that he's interested in inviting men over to sleep with Tara, or unclear what that is. Although I guess in their subsequent conversation, she says it's only that a man has only fucked her twice, I guess. But maybe men have been over more than that. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Right.
But I think you're right in saying that Christian is weirdly defensive and draws lines about certain things, despite the fact that he takes pride in sharing this in other capacities, right? He's speaking of being a provocateur. It's sort of like, I'm outside traditional monogamy, but I'm also not gay, and I don't let guys, I'm still in charge of this girl, basically.
It's a fairly familiar kind of man who claims to be like beyond the strictures of polite society, but still reflects a lot of heteronormativity and insecurity about his own like dominance, even as he is trying to puppeteer the appearance of like a libertine lifestyle. He still wants to be.
I know one or two people like this, unfortunately.
Yep.
One of them's on the podcast right now. Just kidding. Ian's a really nice guy.
Absolutely not. Yeah, do not suggest that particularly don't bring anybody else that is in a relationship with me into some type of nasty business.
That's the point.
Like yeah. All right. So this guy comes over. There's just an encounter. This guy jerks off maybe while James
Deen and Lindsay Lohan simulated jacking off that apparently got the film booted from iTunes until they released a version where the guy's not jacking off. And I feel like these are the kinds of fights for artistic integrity that this film is going through,
Right. Although I gotta say, if I had to pick between the two versions, I would pick the unrated. I mean, it does. I think if the scene has any meaning, I think it has more meaning.
Something unusual, I guess. Yeah.
Anyway, so we follow that, and then we also see Ryan and Gina at their apartments, and they're trying to like suss out exactly what their experience was at this dinner.
I mean, this is 2013 Westwood. This, for you and I, Ian, this is a very strange experience to see. I kept trying to figure out if I had been in that apartment, like at a party.
Right. I was unquestionably on that corner.
Yeah, I used to live like right
times.
there.
Yeah.
You and I walked. I've like, someone gave me a clove cigarette in front of that building. You know, like
right. Yes. Yeah.
Bizarre, and it's it's so much of the film is like feels like a in dialogue with American Gigolo, which of course shot in Westwood. Whatever 23, 33 years before this.
And I do want to emphasize, because naturalism is not the only quality that a film can go for.
No.
I want to say that it's not like a immediate destruction or takedown of a movie to say that it doesn't resemble real life, or the way people speak doesn't resemble real life.
Yeah, check out our 1517 to Paris episode.
Exactly. Great. I mean, for hundreds, thousands of years, great poetry and great drama has involved people speaking in arch ways or strange ways, or ways that are supposed to evoke a reaction besides, this sounds like somebody I know. But I do have to emphasize, the males in particular in this film are speaking in a way, and the dialogue is written in such a strange way that I've never heard somebody talk like this in my life, except when I took screenwriting classes and people were writing the first ever script that they had tried to write in their life, and they are maybe just grappling with the rhythms of language for the first time. So
what's really humiliating for Bret Easton Ellis is that he's been working on stuff.
I totally agree. I have much more sympathy for the people who were in classes with me, and I'm sure they said the same about my screenplays. Right. But we can talk about whether that creates an effect that we think is desirable or interesting. I just want to emphasize that if you are watching this for the first time, or you're planning to watch this, what we are describing is not unfolding in a way that would make you say like, I knew that they would talk like this. I knew that somebody would say a sentence that I've heard before.
It feels neither like a recognizable movie. It doesn't feel like, I don't know, pick a movie off the top of your head. The Firm, where like no one is talking like this in real life, but it has all the rhythms and the sort of silent signifiers of cinema where you recognize this is in the aesthetic tradition of this other stuff. Nor does it feel like it's all deliberately arch to me.
Or alien. I mean, I've seen plenty of Brechtian films or live theater where every word that they say is meant to discomfort you, to set you off. And it's also not that exactly to me. But maybe that's the effect it achieves regardless.
Yeah, one of the things that's so crazy making to me and to Ian about like I think from what we discussed about the reclamation project of this film, and I'm curious to know what you think of this, Charles, is like the way that people will talk about like Lindsay Lohan in The Canyons is good actually, or Richard Brody's review of it at the time seemed to regard it as like a pretty recognizably normal film, and then
this is what made me feel crazy.
And to me, like, a movie doesn't have to be a regular or even a good movie to have interest as an object, but like to see people talking about this film, like I saw it on, it's someone explaining or trying to give evidence for its reclamation was saying that it was placed on a list of the best erotic thrillers a couple of years ago. And like, if I came over to your house and I said, let's put on an erotic thriller, and you put on The Canyons, this is a different thing. There's a different thing going on here. This is not like, I was expecting like Fatal Attraction or Basic Instinct, or maybe like the Ben Affleck Ana de Armas one with the snails from a couple of years ago. I don't want. This is its own thing. It's like if I came over to your movie if I came over to your movie and I said, let's put on a house about soldiers. Let's put on a war movie, and you put on 1517 to Paris. I would also say, this is a different thing. This is its own thing. This needs its own context in order to understand it.
Yes, that's the key piece. And I think, Charles, to point out what you said earlier, you identified to you James Deen as in the tradition of camp, and I might disagree slightly, but at the very least, I want to give you credit by telling somebody that something is in the tradition of camp. You're saying people are going to be acting a little bit crazy when you watch this movie. They're going to be heightened. They're going to be weird.
Yeah, he's not divine. Also, I would like to him to be in the tradition of Camp Crystal Lake. To see someone cut his head off with a machete,
but
in a film.
I want to just, as you're saying, Charles, I'm curious what you feel is either the positive effect, or do you think there's a range? We sort of
I think in listening to the way you're framing it, I think I agree that that the Canyons doesn't fall on either the Brechtian end of the scale or this sort of classical Hollywood almost, or in that tradition zone. I think it's coming off I think it's really important that the movie starts and ends with these dilapidated movie theaters, and that this is Schrader's first film shot on digital.
Yes.
I think this is kind of a digital document of cinematic decay. I think it's a movie where throughout the entire plot, they're trying to make this movie and they never make the movie. And
absolutely.
I think, so I think all of the behaviors in it, it's these people trying to make cinema who aren't making it, and I think that their way of acting kind of falls into that. It's betraying a kind of Lohan says at one point, do you really like movies? Really, really like movies? When was the last time you saw something in the theater that meant something to you?
Mm-hmm.
I think the film is expressing, and the point at in his career that it's at for Schrader, it's expressing a kind of not disinterest, but a losing faith almost. It's like a losing faith in humanity and movies kind of film.
I would accept an argument that it's Schrader's most cynical film that we've talked about up to this point. And that's, on top of Hardcore, on top of Taxi Driver, on top of Light Sleeper, whatever, this is a much bleaker vision. I think you're right.
But Schrader says there's an interview with Salon from around this time where he talks about how James, Lindsay, and the other cast members are part of the post-porn generation. They grew up in the porn culture. It's an epical shift. Epochal,
I think, yeah.
It's a crisp shift for these young people. And he says, my generation, we thought we could make a difference and make the world better. Bret's generation thought they could make money. I don't think this current generation has any real aspirations. They're making money. That's not true. But I don't think that they're crazy about money. The characters make movies and they don't like movies that much. They're hooking up and they don't like that much. The difference is my parents and I always believed life would be better for the next generation. The current generation believes life is going to be worse for the next generation. It's such a change for the future of humanity. The future is not something now that guarantees a better life, which makes me very excited to watch First Reformed again. I think this movie sets up...
Oh, yeah.
This movie may have set Paul Schrader on a trajectory toward First Reformed, which
true.
I'm grateful to it.
Yeah, that's part of looking at directors' oeuvres is to see what maybe have triggered something else, right? That's fascinating.
I mean, you can't have 1517 without Heartbreak Ridge.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And you can't have this film without Comfort of Strangers or American Gigolo, kind of like we're saying.
Hardcore. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, Charles, if you, and Ian as well, do you guys think that the movie theaters were in Ellis's screenplay?
No.
Because they feel so much like the Schraderian touch. They feel like the addition or the idea of someone who is actually outside of this LA faux hawk slime that everyone else in the film is stuck in. But I don't know. Yeah,
I love this addition. I'm so glad that you brought it up, Charles. And I will say, you and I share a similar disinterest and intention as a starting point for artistic discussion.
Whereas I wake up and set my intention every day. And that's why I'm so successful in all avenues of my life.
So, yes, that's right. But I was sort of not surprised to discover that Bret Easton Ellis was initially very upset with this film, disappointed by it, particularly because he had in mind, I believe, what he called a prankish noir film.
He said pranky.
Oh, God.
You're right. He did say pranky.
We'll never
That's just
forget
worse.
The word pranky, which I hate so much.
Yeah. And I actually think I went back and watched a few scenes. It became very easy for me to imagine the type of film that Ellis wanted to make. At least I assume I'm imagining it correctly. And I agree that, to me, my assumption is that this comes from Schrader. Those choices, the theater choices, the choices to slow down basically every scene, to rob it of any type of traditional erotic thriller momentum, those are Schrader's choices. And I do think they are among the more interesting choices that
right.
change the entire atmosphere of the film.
Can we round out the plot really quick so we can talk more broadly?
Let's do it.
Sorry, I'm
so
the architect of all derailments on this show. I know that. I'm aware of that.
No, it's true. It's okay. It's okay. This is important. So the rest of the film, to sum it up as briefly as possible, Christian begins to suspect correctly that Tara and Ryan have a romantic past and maybe a romantic present. They reveal that they have been hooking up for the last month once they re-encountered each other, which is why when Tara was got him on the film. And Christian, although despite the number of times the beginning of the movie says that he's not a jealous person or that he trusts her completely, he is also hooking up with exes, and he has this sense of ownership over her. So he pays people to follow her in the Century City Mall, and he pays people to hack into her cell phone.
Shout out to the old Century City Mall. That did we go there much when it was when it looked like that though?
Definitely.
Okay. Ian and I used to see movies at the AMC there.
I've only been to LA a couple times, and I thought misidentified it as Santa Monica. It was giving I was like, is this?
They wanted to shoot it at the Santa Monica Promenade, but the Promenade wanted $10,000, and then they were going to try to steal the shots. But the security guy was like, "That's Lindsay Lohan," and then she actually contrived an idea. This speaks to her as less completely helpless victim, and as more of a person trying to navigate her way through a fucked situation. But she was like, "Look, we'll go to the Grove and invite TMZ, and I'll give them 3 quotes, and then they'll pay us $3,000 to shoot at the Grove, and the production will make money." And she's like trying to work the angles here, but they eventually settled for the Century City Mall, which has since been demolished and rebuilt.
Yes. So the drama, the traditional tension of the film builds around what is Christian going to do once he has found out, and what is Ryan willing to do. He is still in love with Tara, and also he wants to stay on the film, and Christian is setting up these manipulations where Ryan has to have sex with a director to stay in the film, et cetera, et cetera.
Male director, to be clear.
Yes, that's correct.
Ryan, who is ostensibly a straight character in the film.
Yep. And at the end, basically, Tara knows that Christian knows. She's afraid of him. Christian is threatening Ryan. Christian goes to the woman who helped Ryan try to get Tara back, kills her, and then goes to Lindsay Lohan's character and basically says, "I know you're planning on leaving." She has her bags packed, but I want you to give me an alibi, and if you ever try to meet with Ryan again, I'm going to kill him, and I'm going to get away with it. Because he's like the son of a big real estate empire family, which is why he can pay to produce these movies, et cetera, et cetera. And so the close of the film is a little time jump forward. Tara is with a new rich boyfriend. They've just returned from Dubai. They're at a new double date, and she's sort of acting in the same strange, detached way. But we get a little bit of intrigue because the woman is asking her questions about her relationship with Christian, what happened with that girl who was murdered. She goes to the bathroom. It's revealed that she was set up or paid or whatever to ask these questions. But it's not Christian who paid her to do it. It's Ryan who wants to know, like, what's happening. Is she ever going to reveal the truth? Or, is she okay?
It's not the hills. It's the canyons.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yes.
And notably, this scene at the end is in the West Hollywood Hotel where Schrader was staying during the production of the film. And there's like a bit in the New York Times article where Lohan is apparently like weeping in the hallway outside of his room because he fired her for showing up late. And then like the hotel's like, should we call the cops? And he's, well, don't call the cops on Lindsay Lohan. So this is all happening very much in there's a
same
a blurring of
environment. Yeah. Now I omitted 2 scenes because I assumed we'd want to talk about them, and I was trying to avoid derailing. So first, there is the sex scene. There's the famous nude scene that involves a lot of production stuff, and second is the therapy scene. Where would you guys like to start? What do you think, Charles?
Let's start with the therapy scene. I think it might be a little bit briefer of a conversation.
Great. I mean, I think it's horseshit. I think it's bad. I think it's cheap.
But everybody's in.
Well, I'm gonna argue that Gus Van Sant maybe second best actor in the film.
He's
being
sure.
very strange.
Gus Van Sant, I don't think he's ever appeared next to the Muppets, but he really feels like he should. He's got a Muppet face to him. I like Gus Van Sant. I've liked a lot of his films, but
yes,
I mean,
Charles, you're starting to say.
Yeah, please. I think that the way that I think the opening shot of the therapy scene is in a kind of mirror that's a rounded mirror that gives you this sort of cylindrical view of the room. And I think that relates a little bit to what we're talking about behaviors of the characters throughout the movie, and also back to Comfort of Strangers, where Walken has this whole thing about through the mirror at the end of that movie, that great end of that movie. I mean, that's really that movie. It's really a case of like the finale just tying everything together so perfectly.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I'll put myself on the reclamation project for Comfort of Strange. I was surprised that it has such a weak reputation.
I'm actually not aware really of what its reputation is, but I loved it. It was great. And I think that The Canyons is almost Comfort of Strangers just through the mirror. The whole movie is just through the mirror of those type of characters. You know, that movie plays around with infidelity, and also not infidelity, I guess, as much as just what other people bring into your relationship sexually, and how that can change the dynamics of your relationship, and how in Comfort of Strangers it has some positive effects in that Rupert Everett and Natasha Richardson, they have like some great
rekindle their
they have
attraction.
some great sex. They create some fantasies because of Walken and Mirren initially. Whereas here, bringing people into the relationship, it's always bad news.
Cheapens it, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I guess Deen gets sick pleasure out of it, but it doesn't ever really help anything. And he's always bringing the people in at these sort of inopportune moments, I think, too. He's always suggesting it, and Lohan's like, really, tonight?
Right.
Yeah, no, and I think that the rest of the therapy scene, to get back to that, also, if bluntly, gets at this idea of behaviors with
it's direct.
We're all actors. I mean, that's definitely a sort of too blunt bit of dialogue.
There's a lot of, first draft, very blunt, no one's life is private anymore kind of lines.
But here's the thing. I almost preferred this because this is like clumsy attempt to communicate an idea or a series of sort of hastily yoked ideas. But I think it contrasts with the rest of the film, where it's often unclear to me what is trying to be communicated, and not in a sort of like provocative, make me do some work type way, but just in a mystifying, opaque way.
I mean, here's kind of my read or my big reaction to the film.
Okay.
I should preface this by saying my lovely podcast girlfriend told me, if you tell me you like this movie, I'm going to have to stop listening to the podcast. So luckily I didn't like it in a traditional sense, but it helped crystallize for me what I have found so strange about living in Los Angeles during this time. And I think it's got a particularly unique perspective for someone who lives in LA. But like, so it's a post-industrial Hollywood. Bret Easton Ellis can shut up about his post-Empire stuff. This is like it's a post-Hollywood Los Angeles, essentially. The movie industry as it's existed for 100 years is gone. The films aren't being shot in LA anymore. The financing isn't coming from LA. The films don't look or feel like they used to, even when they are shot in LA. And there's these peripheral organisms that have grown up on and thrived thanks to the movie industry. The celebrity culture and the gossip rags and the smaller producers and agents and casting people and all of this that have grown up to sort of they're barnacles on the Hollywood whale, and then the whale has vanished and the barnacles are still here, and some of them are like attaching to each other, and they're all sort of talking about the whale that we don't see. They're talking about this movie that they are apparently, it's important to them to make the movie, but the fact of the movie, the actual text of the movie is of basically no importance to them. It's not like people didn't get famous for being famous before this. I mean, you got Zsa Zsa Gabor and Tiny Tim and all the rest of them.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out that we've talked about Emma Tolkien on the show. Her father wrote a film that came out in 1992 that was talking about the vacuity of Hollywood. And
Robert Altman's The Player. Wonderful film. Yes.
Great film. But the people in that film also say, like, have you seen a movie lately? I think that's almost a line in the movie.
Right. I mean, there's jokes about this in Annie Hall when Woody Allen goes to L.A.
Yep.
And also, Braxton Pope produced the documentary The Source Family, which is about the restaurant that Woody Allen goes to. So whatever. But, you've got reality TV stars and tabloid darlings, and they're doing what they can given their circumstances. But the weirdest part about these people is that, like, making a movie still holds a significance for them. And for some reason, the thing that comes to mind is, like, the Gran Turismo movie. And there's no way that movie made anywhere near the amount of money that the game makes. Yeah. And yet, like, making a Gran Turismo movie still feels like it's some important mark of significance, like having a movie of this thing. But, like, the movie that these people are making is it's going to be the kind of thing that's going to, like, end up on Hulu after you've been scrolling for a full minute, and you're like, who watches this stuff?
Yes, what used to be direct to DVD or direct to video.
Used to be direct to DVD, but even, like, or used to be, like, drive-in shit, or, like, I mean, Friday the 13th Part 4 or whatever. But that was, like, a movie that would make money because there weren't that many movies. And this technology, this democratizing technology that Ellis is too stupid to realize is kind of involved in his empire, post-empire divide, has cheapened things to the point that, like, you can make a movie with your phone, but, like, then what is a movie? Is there something about the difficulty of making a movie that is crucial to its significance? And then, I did happen to calculate that Farrah Abraham, the teen mom star who made the fake sex tape with James Deen, she, in 2014, so this film was rejected from both Sundance and South by Southwest, mostly, I think, as kind of, like, look at us, attention-seeking behavior.
I don't know if that's fair to say.
I don't know. I've seen some fucking festival movies that are, there's no distinction between this and those.
I've seen bad festival movies. I still think they're entirely distinct from this.
But, so this film didn't get to Austin. Farrah Abraham had a residency at the Palacios Gentlemen's Club in Austin, Texas, from August to December 2014.
How much?
And she made $500,000. She made
twice as much what this film
this film made. Yeah. So I don't know. There's a certain, like, what is anyone still here for? Why are they in these spaces? Why are they dressed like this when no one in a movie is dressed like this? Why are any of you here? And as opposed to a different city, there's something about the experience of the empty LA that I think is captured by this film in a way that I appreciated but did not enjoy. Like, it felt, do you enjoy being given a diagnosis by a physician? Not necessarily, but it's important in some sense. Does that make sense?
Oh, I think I understand what you're saying. I think it comes back to the same cynicism that Charles was identifying, and I disliked, I will say, an IndieWire review. Fortunately, don't even remember who it was by, but where he describes Schrader and Ellis as nihilists who were finally meeting. It was like a classic meeting of two. I think the characterization of Schrader as a nihilist doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
I don't think it's borne up by any of his films. So to me, then this person loved this movie. So I just wondered, this was part of my temporary psychosis of wondering, like, what is this person seeing in the other movies that I'm not seeing, and they're seeing something here that I'm not seeing. But I agree with everything you said, Jake, insofar as the cutting back to the empty theaters, which happened as kind of like chapter titles or interstitials or whatever, right? It really pauses the film. We are getting, for people who haven't seen it, a still shot of a derelict theater in almost black and white. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, it reminds me quite a bit of some of the folks who are added to transcendental style in film in the revision.
It's true.
It's got a Simon Lang aspect to it. I think Schrader is, unlike Bret Easton Ellis, Schrader is evolving and trying to react to the form in which he's made his career.
And relating it to the almost contemporaneous, like Tangerine, early Simon Baker, or what Soderbergh's doing at this time with iPhones or digital cinema or whatever. This is a similar interest in, like, what can you capture with these tools that is maybe going to be unique to those tools, right? If you shot this exact same thing on a film camera, on like a whatever Ariaflex or something, what wouldn't be there that you actually get by having this cleaned up, artificially crisped image? And I think that is interesting. I guess I recognize the thesis. I recognize what you're pointing out, and I recognize what I think Yui was identifying similar things. I just feel that I don't know if it's even the most successful version of that. Even if we're identifying the sort of amateurishness of the line readings, of the dialogue itself, as being a reflection of the emptiness at the heart of Hollywood, of the passivity, the same type. Bling Ring, comes out around a similar time, trying to identify. And I'm not saying that I love Bling Ring or something, but I guess I'm interested in people who are trying to identify what this means for the people involved, or what this means for greater American society, or how do people live in that world? Can people live? Can people be human in the traditional sense that we understand it, if there is a continuity of that? And to me, that it's like maybe they're trying to do some of that, but every time some actor comes on screen, they trip over the door frame, and nobody points this out. Every single scene, somebody visibly trips, and you say, "Wow, were they? That's really interesting. Were they tripping as part of it?" And then you read a review that just doesn't mention it at all.
It's Kramer stumbling into the room, and the audience reacting with silence.
Yeah, exactly. And
is
then
he
nobody.
Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Is Kramer
right. So
was that Kramer doing that, or was that Michael Richards?
Yeah, to me, there is significant stuff here. But I wonder, my question for you, Charles, is to what extent do you feel that you have to do the work to find this in the film? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like I'm saying, I like readerly texts, as they call them in the fancy academic world. But how much of that do you think is in there? How much of that do you think you're bringing? Which are the parts that you think it does really successfully, maybe to help you?
Yeah, sure.
Endeavor?
I think this is, and maybe I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but this is a kind of pleasurable movie for me. It's not like difficult for me to watch this. Yeah, and I think, referencing your partner, Jake, I started the movie with my girlfriend and the other night, and then she had to go back to her place, but she got really sick all of a sudden. No,
oh shit! I forgot. I have a doctor that's it's like a night doctor. He's only open from 6 to midnight. I
would have totally believed that, or believed that she was having an adverse reaction in the movie, except that she was imploring me to give her a way to finish it. She really liked it and was saying like, "No, I really like this. Like, tell me, give me your Criterion login or whatever." So no, I think both of us, maybe we're just vapid, robotic people. Like,
oh no, I think to enjoy this movie, you can't be like the people in the movie. In your defense, Charles, I think that means that you're like the farthest thing from this. I think you might be a fiend of a different kind. You're some like
this is a Crimes of the Future type situation that we're looking at here.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yes, I mean, yeah. So I love doing the work of pulling apart subtext and like reframing my ideas of quality and sort of to examine something like this. But I also just find the environment that it creates pretty enjoyable in a kind of Killing of a Chinese Bookie way. That's a movie that came to mind when I was watching it.
Wow. Now I'm mad at you again. How dare you compare this to Killing of a Chinese Bookie?
Well, but some of
Schrader said she's like Gina Rollins. I don't care.
Schrader said he specifically said he wanted to remake what's the fucking movie called? Gloria. He wants to make Gloria.
Oh yeah.
He was talking about maybe remaking Gloria with Lindsay Lohan. So there's a Cassavetes. He's thinking of Cassavetes.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially the scene, which on an acting level, this might be the worst scene in the movie, but when Ryan goes to the hotel to speak with the manager there, and
now that guy did gay porn
for sure. Oh, really?
For real?
Actually,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he did. I thought that the guy who came to the door at the beginning, I thought I had clocked him as a gay porn star. He did porn with women.
No,
mostly,
yeah, that.
So. shows what I know. I don't have a lot of experience with
Yeah,
stuff.
no, that makes sense. I mean, I think, that scene, the way it's shot, there's a couple of handheld moments, that scene, and then I think when Lohan comes home from Cynthia's place and sort of confronts Christian, it's also kind of handheld, and both of those were very Cassavetes-like moments for me. I think the way that that he sort of wanders around LA, Schrader, that is, wanders around LA in this movie and plays with how time is feeling is similar to Killing of a Chinese Bookie. But
now we're back on Earth 1 and Earth 2. This is so crazy to me. This is like totally insane. I love Cassavetes. I think he is somebody who can ride both extreme naturalism and characters who obviously don't exist in the world that we know, and yet they are creating a very specific effect, either effect of contrast or continuity or alienation or extreme comfort or whatever. And I just don't see any of that here. This is so interesting to me. And I mean this with love. This is part of the joy of shared film criticism for me, from people that I respect and I know are giving it a lot of thought, right? I know there's nothing shortcutty in your thinking. So I guess this inspires me to want to pay closer attention because of how much I love Cassavetes. But it's for you to use that as a touch point is so baffling to me, because it's really like, wow, I just don't recognize any of that in here.
I mean, for Schrader to invoke Monroe, like, I get I understand some of the comparisons he's making, but also, I mean, Lindsay Lohan's face looks like she's, like, you can see the addiction in her physical
that scene where she's driving to Cynthia's house, the bags under her eyes was, she looks...
And no one's talking about it in the film to the point where it's confusing. I mean, it's like,
but she's drinking
like
heavily in the film. That's the only thing I'll say. It's not like we're supposed to understand she's doing well or something. That would be stranger to me.
No, she's not. Yeah, she's not doing well. And I did read reports that people were saying, she was drinking that she was filming some of it drunk, I guess. But no, I don't think she's supposed to be. I mean, there's that kind of horrifying scene where Ryan comes over and I'm not sure exactly where she's supposed to be. I guess she has her own place. There's that house.
I think she's at his. I think she lets herself at his place.
Yeah, she's just sobbing on the bed, and he just begins to kiss and then have sex with her without barely even addressing the fact that she's just in pieces in that moment.
Yes.
That's one of the better scenes of the film. All right. Okay, our Earths are converging again. This is very interesting.
To see the compulsive smirking and lip pursing that Deen is doing throughout the film, and not say this is a guy who is pretending that he's an actor, to say like this is a compelling new screen presence or whatever, is just a bunch of people say.
I gotta say that James Deen's acting didn't work for me, even as camp. You know, I could watch John Waters' film without blinking an eye, but to see this guy saying, I mean, partly it's on Ellis, but there was a moment where Lohan's character asks him what he's doing on his phone or who he's talking to, and he says, "It's nobody, it's whoever." And I was just like, nobody has ever said those words. The way you said them made them even less real to me.
Oh shit!
Somehow.
That reminds me. I'm so sorry. We have a sponsor today. Tex TV is sponsoring us.
You better believe I took a note about Tex TV.
This is the obvious use case. The obvious use case of having your phone in your hands but wanting it to be on a television, not because you're in a movie and the audience needs to know what you're texting about, but simply because what if it was over there?
But was this really the first instance of trying to show texting and they didn't want to just look? Well, they look at the phone many times in the film as that's one way, or there's like the searching style text on screen.
That's much better. Or I think, speaking of John McCool, the Shallows, he does the the text just floating in the air, and you know what? It's fine. And that's a shark movie.
Text
TV.
I
mean, it does. I like this. It's absurd, and when the first time I watched the movie and I saw that, it was like just sort of a laugh moment. But there is also kind of some symbolism from her. I was trying to figure out what she's watching before that. I mean,
she's watching Christmas with the Dead.
Oh, is she? Okay. There's some symbolism in sort of the screen switching over to, just this text conversation for me.
From a like more classic but junky B movie, Hollywood nonsense, or maybe C movie, whatever, Z movie or something. But yeah, that's an interesting point. You're right. To the massively blown up text on a TV. Yeah.
Should we talk about the foursome scene quickly, and then we'll wrap things up?
Yeah. I've never watched something that brought the word simian to mind so clearly to me. This when you're talking about
Deen has a real monkey, he has a real ape-like way of walking. He reminded me of like when you see like Andy Serkis or Toby Kebbell like demonstrate how they walk for the apes movies. Yeah.
This I would also accept as an argument for the movie being interesting. The from the balcony down shot of the three of them coming back from the pool is so strange. Like you're saying, Jake, so unerotic to me. Didn't even activate the parts of my brain that theorize about eroticism. Just like true, that is such a distance from this that, you know, like watching bird sex or something where it's barely is the same thing. It barely fits this semiotic category.
Yeah, is the flying part of it, or is that like a mistake? It's the same. It's the Kramer thing all over again.
Exactly. So that was interesting to me. But what did you guys think about this scene? The lights, so much to talk about.
I mean, it reminded me of like somebody like a Zsa Zhang Ke or Simon Lang or the Safdies, people who are trying to find ways to aestheticize this particular kind of LED like light on the side of a torta truck kind of visual language that we like. The color of light is different now, but
with an awareness of its cheapness and still seeing an aesthetic beauty to it.
And I think Schrader might be trying to do this. I don't know why, or if it was necessarily an intention or maybe just a budgetary necessity that the light sometimes turned into SpongeBob SquarePants flower shapes on them.
Yeah.
There's maybe something there about how, in this low light with the flashing, like bodies it becomes difficult to discern whose body is whose, and if we're looking at a man or a woman, and obviously that's part of the game that Lohan is playing. It's part of the game that Ellis is playing with the actors because he's, I think, a pervert in addition to being an idiot.
Yep.
And, she finds a way to make Christian, make out with the guy. And
this is like if there's such a thing as explicit subtext, the explicit subtext of this moment is like she's taking back the power by making him engage in the types of acts that he normally makes her engage in.
And he would be uncomfortable with in the way that she might be, but is unable to express. But also, reading behind the scenes, she was uncomfortable with this. The other three actors have done pornography, and so they're like, it's nothing to them to be naked on camera in front of a bunch of other people, which even just like the experience of being uncomfortable with a bunch of people who are themselves very comfortable with what's happening. I mean, I relate to this. This is This is the beach. This is
dancing.
Smoking reefer. This is anything. Yeah. But also, I think it got to the point where like Schrader got naked in order to make her feel.
This is one of the famous things. He took his clothes off for like the entirety of that.
And she apparently yelled "Paul," and then was like, "Ha ha ha." Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't think a 26-year-old who is in active addiction is the kind of person I would want to put into a situation where they have to decide whether or not they're comfortable with something like this.
Yeah.
So such was 2013. But as you said, Ian, I think it's like explicit subtext. I'm made uncomfortable during it. I don't want to see this happen. I don't know. It's whatever to me.
Charles, what do you think? This is like the emotional climax for some people.
Yeah, no, I love this scene. I think I'm fascinated by the control element. I mean, that is a little bit of a maybe standard theme for something like this or for an erotic thriller. Yeah. But I love that the movie really turns, I think, for me in this scene where Lohan's talking to Cynthia and goes over to her house and Cynthia is sort of expressing concern for her, even though this is something Ryan's put her up to, right? She doesn't actually have concern for her, or maybe she does actually have real concern for her. It's
difficult to say.
It's a little unclear. But Lohan retorts to this saying, look, Christian's not going to hurt me. If anything, I'm the one that's going to hurt him. And yeah, I think that attempt to hurt him is comes in this foursome scene where she goads him to make out with the other guy, and then goads the guy to blow Christian, right?
Yep.
Yeah, her idea of hurting him is a man
humiliating
sucking him off.
Right.
And his idea of hurting someone is murdering them with a knife.
Right, which I think it does hurt him. So she achieves her goal, but then he just proves that, he's going to trump. That was an illusion of exactly.
Yeah. His level of the violence and toxicity levels that he's willing to reach are far beyond hers. Yeah, I think I think that Tsai Ming-Long and Jia Zhangke comparison with the visuals is a great one, Jake. But yeah, I like it as a real document of the control thing. And I'm trying to think if there's something else that was.
Yeah. Any final thoughts? Yeah. About the film?
Yeah. Final thoughts. I mean, certainly, it's a more than anything else, I think it's a depiction of Hollywood, the movie industry, cinema itself on the cusp of a new paradigm.
Yeah, and there's some occasional choices that to me felt more like filmic interesting choices. When they go to Cynthia's house, she has like a weird little doorbell thing. It doesn't say Okairi. It says some phrase in Japanese that's like unclear to me.
It says Iroshamase. It's the thing that someone says when you go into a Japanese restaurant. It means like welcome to the restaurant. It's to me that just reads as people in LA love sushi. Like that's
but actually that's the kind of texture that I did appreciate.
It is. And her home and Ryan and Gina's home, they are so realistically like relatively underpaid Los Angeles people's apartments that I became physically uncomfortable looking at them because I was in one of those myself.
I hope it's okay we'll check with former guest on the show, Forrest, but he lived in a North Hollywood apartment with a few other actors or aspiring actors and writers for a time that looked uncannily like this.
Yeah. When he was living with Spacey and Casey and Army.
Yeah.
I guess.
And they were like, this guy's
Dennis Quaid.
I guess my final point I wanted to make that I think is significant about the movie is that, and you guys can kind of fill in this a little better because I haven't seen nearly as much Schrader as you have, but it's the first Schrader I've experienced that really feels like it's not being told in the first person. And I think beyond even the lack of narration and a character journaling, that's obviously the big cliche with Schrader, but I think it really doesn't feel like it's a film that's being told in the first person. If anything, it's being told in the second person. It's almost like being told to the audience, like you. It's sort of this boomer. Is Schrader a boomer, or is he even older than that?
He's a little older. He's 46.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He's a little older than a boomer.
He's a crusper, but
put him in the drawer.
But he's sort of addressing, millennials or something. It's like him addressing millennials. So I found that interesting about it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this is my glib, kind of cruel line, but it did feel like Schrader's first movie about people who aren't smart enough to write a journal. But I think there's something to that. I mean, they are resisting self-reflection in a way that actors are sort of famous for. But it's I think the way he talks about it now is kind of like, look, this is how I could get a movie made between Adam Resurrected and whatever the next one is. Dog.
He seems to wish that people gave it more consideration. He pegs it like many people on the Lohan hullabaloo, but
he rewatched it on Mubi a couple weeks ago, according to Facebook. So
great,
that's fun. We have one more thing to do here, which is of course our segment, the sexual obsession check-in. Now, a few months ago, Schrader was talking about his upcoming project. He had this to say.
I've never written a script about sexual obsession, and so that's the one I'm doing now. And
here on the show, we are trying to examine whether or not Paul Schrader has ever made a film that's not about sexual obsession. We have a few on the list, and also he specifically says written. He did not write this film, but Nevertheless, do I identify sexual obsession within the film? My answer is yes, I do.
I do as well. I'm always tempted to do the big brain thing of saying, like,
it's like about power. It's about,
It's so empty of erotic. No, but this is about sexual obsession. Certainly, it comes up.
It's certainly
every
one of
5 minutes.
One of the major themes of the film is sexual obsession.
Yes, their conceptions. Their conceptions of sex are just very warped, and they've just completely redefined it for themselves. But it's still about sexual obsession, I would say. Yeah.
Hit it with a big stamp. Yes.
Boom. There
stamp
it is.
Sound effect. Boom. There it is. One of my favorite songs.
Yep. And I do want to just address Charles's point. I was trying to think of. I mean, I think the only other films that come to mind that you're right aren't. Even though I do think it's an oversimplification, like you pointed out, to say that it's all men journaling. Sometimes it's more metaphorical versions of that, or something like a Patty Hearst. But
sometimes they're filming themselves having sex with their friend John Carpenter.
Right, exactly, and watching the film of them having sex with their friend. Yeah. I think Blue Collar is arguably maybe like 3 stories told in first person, but that's enough. That creates enough tension between the versions of the narrative that I think it's a different effect. And then also Mishima, although it is about one man, it's a film about one person, but told through different visions of that person. So.
I mean, the aforementioned Comfort of Strangers is, it's obviously it's an adaptation of someone else's work by Harold Pinter adapting Ian McEwan.
Yeah.
But I think that film is a much more of a 4-parter and a 4-hander. And
it is, but it's sort of engrossed in Walken's character's perspective so much. I mean, you're ending. Yeah,
his journal is a monologue.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And his sort of, you could even view some of the shots at the beginning as sort of him looking at, the couple. And I do think we're kind of in his perspective.
Yeah, but I love your characterization of this movie, Charles, because I would say those films obviously get closer to what we would consider, typical third person, where the tension between different versions or different reactions to what's happening in the film becomes a part of the film. And this is neither the indulgent or slightly solipsistic first person, nor is it the multiple ideas and tension. Right. I like this as this is a story about multiple people, but being told to you with one perspective that you are supposed to react to. That's
and also
pretty keen.
Speaks to how much of the text of this film is external to the film. Is Facebook.com/The Canyons is all that other stuff. Interesting film.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on the show, Charles.
Thank you so much, Charles. That you did a heroic. You served a heroic purpose here for us. So
almost nothing like J. Edgar Hoover, I have to say. Yeah. In the time I've known you here on the microphone, I see very little resemblance, except in your obvious power.
Well, yeah. I'm extremely anti-police state, so I'm glad that I'm not giving Hoover. But yeah, thank you guys for having me. It's been a pleasure.
We welcome you to the No Police State Club. We don't. We're not in charge of the club, to be clear. Do you have anything you'd like to plug? Anything anywhere people can check out your work?
You have a bunch of wonderful music opinions that I will say that's the type of thing where I'm just deferring to you. I was just learning from stuff you were saying, just straight up.
Yeah, no, I am an equal parts, I guess, at this point, film and music head. My college degree's in film, but I write about music mainly for Slant. So yeah, people can check out my work at Slant. I write about film and music there. They can check out my work at Spectrum Culture. I write pretty frequently there. Just reviewed Victor Erice's Close Your Eyes. Great movie.
Very cool.
Cool.
And yeah, follow me on Letterboxd, Charles Lyons.
Sweet. Everybody check it out. Check out Comfort of Strangers if you haven't seen that.
Yeah,
definitely.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
And also Parent Trap. I don't know. Check out Freaky Friday. I'll probably return to Freaky Friday.
Yeah, you guys got to watch that. You haven't seen it either, Jay?
I'll spin up Freaky Friday. Yeah, that sounds great.
As for us, remember to subscribe, rate us, write a review. Helps us on the algorithm. If you like the show, tell a friend, tell your dad, tell Gus Van Zant. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Podcasty for me. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you're interested in co-hosting a 2-person Paul Schrader podcast, you can email us at podcastyforme@gmail.com. All of that and more is at podcastyforme.com, including Ian the Game. Check it out. Thank you to Jeremy Allison for our artwork. Next week, we will be talking Dying of the Light, another film that went exactly how Paul Schrader wanted it to go. And
that's right.
With that, we thank you for listening. See you next time.
Bye.